Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Luke Innes. I'm here today with another movie review. And today, I haven't gotten the time to review a movie or even watch a movie in a little while, but I decided to kick back today and check out something I've never seen before. It's titled The Evil Breed, Legend of Samhain. The movie was directed by Christian Veal. It stars Jenna Jameson for all of about 3 minutes, along with Bobby Phillips, Richard Grieco, and that chick who was in that Metallica video one time. So essentially the story starts with an American pair of tourists who are camping in Ireland who get attacked and murdered in rather a bloody fashion. In order to tie that into the story, which wasn't entirely necessary, they incorporate Jenna Jameson's character, who's their friend who agreed to meet them there and is looking for them. That's not entirely relevant to the plot though. But essentially the plot of the movie revolves around a teacher who is taking some of her students on a trip, a transatlantic trip to Ireland to study something. I can't really remember what. It wasn't particularly. I think it's something to do with like the history of kind of, you know, some sort of religious history or something. She's there with her students, her boyfriend comes along for the ride, and it turns out that they shouldn't be so blasé about these curses that are being talked of. It turns out that there is some sort of family of cannibals hiding out ready to come and eat everyone. The first thing that really annoys me about this movie is it's got that kind of meta-textuality thing going on, that Scream thing, only it doesn't feel particularly like it's got a point here. You know, that whole, you know, sort of idea of a self-referential slasher movie was pretty cool when Scream did it, although that's far from a perfect film. But the fact that it kind of worked its way into pretty much every horror movie that came out for the next few years really started to grate on me, and this is another one of those examples where everyone just is talking about horror movies and horror movie tropes the whole time. And the reason that I've got a problem with that is very few of these movies work that in a way that feels relevant to the story. It's just people talking about horror movies. Ultimately in Scream, people used what they knew from horror movies to avert certain dangers or to walk in on some of them, because horror movies aren't necessarily a portrayal of reality. You know, they were that was the idea in Scream, whereas in this they just bring it up every now and then because that was the trendy thing to do. And I mean, this movie ain't even that old. It was made in like 2002, I think, but it didn't get released until like 2005. I believe that's the case, don't quote me on that. But even then, it would have been very late for that to be happening. You know, we're talking about the late 90s here in terms of that sort of thing being frequent in horror, but this is a lot later on. So, another thing about this movie, the acting is pretty terrible. No one in this movie is particularly good at acting. Not, you know, the concerned teacher, not the local woman, not the, you know, the kids. Everyone's a stock character and they can't even nail those stock characters. There's one great character in this. I say great, I mean terrible, but the most obvious red herring of a character imaginable. You know, the creepy groundskeeper guy. You know, he's the most obvious red herring you've ever seen in a movie. He's a lot like that guy in Pieces, the gardener, who you always see pulling an evil face and walking around with a chainsaw. He's a little bit like that, actually. I mean, all of the actors who've got to do an Irish accent sound terrible. I mean, this movie was obviously filmed somewhere in the United States, because everyone in it's American. I've never been anywhere in Ireland that looks like this film. It all just comes off really poorly, you know, and I suppose that's what you get if you have a cast made up mostly of porn stars. I mean, they're not exactly good at acting, that's why they're porn stars, you know. It doesn't defy logic to think that they'd be pretty fucking terrible at acting. I'm going for all the negative stuff first here. I'm going to get onto some positives in a moment, but the last of the negatives that I want to bring up before I do that is the ending. Now, I'm not going to spoil it, obviously. I'll leave it for you to decide if you want to see this film or not. I can't see anyone getting too excited about this, but the ending is just the most non-sequitorial crap ending I've ever seen. It makes no sense why the ending turns out the way it does. I mean, obviously, like I say, I'll leave that to be something that you discover yourself, but let me assure you, it's a terrible ending. Onto the front of positives. The first one's kind of a backhanded compliment in a way. The movie's not very long. It's only like 80 minutes, a little bit under, 77 and a half maybe, I'd say. So it doesn't overstretch itself. It's as long as it kind of has to be. It doesn't feel like the rhythm is particularly stunted or anything like that. You know, oftentimes with these kind of very amateurish movies, you tend to find that there's quite a long time spent on nothing, really, whereas this movie kind of deals with its shit quite quickly and gets through things, which is obviously kind of appreciable. If a movie's terrible, if it's not over long, that's a big bonus. And actually, I've got to say, I just called the movie terrible. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's terrible. It's pretty close, but it's not quite there. It's got kind of the hallmarks of a terrible movie worked in, but it's not totally terrible. The big redeeming factor, I've got to say, in this movie is that the gore is nasty as fuck, okay? The gore is just so fucking intense, man. Like, there's like people who've been like cut in half and all their fucking insides are falling out, and like, you know, people getting disemboweled. And that's actually a really funny scene. Wait for the disembowelment scene. There's a scene where a guy's getting disemboweled in like the bathroom, and there's someone on the other side of the door, and this guy's fucking screaming the place down, getting his guts ripped out and whatever, and the woman on the other side of the door can't hear shit, man. It's really funny, actually, this movie. I've got to say, in places it does get really funny. Despite the really awkward acting and the fact that it's just all around terrible, there are some good laughs in this movie, and the gore is quite good from time to time, I've got to say. I mean, like the chick who gets cut in half and all her shit's falling out, that looks really good, I've got to say. The one thing that I've got to say though is that some of the gore, I would say you've got to have a pretty sick sense of humour to enjoy. Like, this is kind of beyond the usual sort of slasher movie level of gore that you would kind of expect in terms of its explicitness. Like, it's into like the kind of quite cynical, dark territory of you know, a really horrible exploitation movie, you know, something like Anthropophagus, for instance. It's not on the same level as, say, like a Friday the 13th or something like that. I've got to say, to sum this movie up, yeah, it's never going to set the world alight. It never did, it never will. It's very cheap looking, quite tacky. Definitely, you know, it's a poorly made movie, I guess. But I mean, it does have the gore on its side. The gore is very interesting to watch. It's nicely executed. That's pretty good. I'll give it that. And the movie overall doesn't, you know, runs its course fairly nicely. It doesn't overstay or anything like that. This movie is significantly better than some of the bad movies I've covered. You know, Slaughterhouse Massacre and Bram Stoker's Legend of the Mummy ain't got nothing on this, to be fair. Overall, I'm going to give the movie a score of 5 out of 10. I feel like this movie, there's some stuff in there to appreciate, I've got to say. I'm definitely not going to watch it again, but there is some stuff there that I quite enjoyed. Some of it was unintentional, or at least I think was unintentional. But also, this movie is replete with problems, I've got to say, on all fronts, in terms of the directing, the editing, the acting. There's problems with all of it that you're going to have to get round in order to get some enjoyment out of this movie. So I think overall a 5 out of 10 is a reasonable score for this movie. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you very soon with another horror movie review. In the meantime, why don't you check out my podcast, link in the description. See you later.